Hi, I'm Susan Keefe from Rhubarb Cod, and today I'm making Malai Kofta Baked Potatoes. Today's recipe was inspired by Anadi's collaboration My Cooking Journey 2021. Unfortunately, I was a little late in the game to take part, but I thought I would give him and his excellent channel Cooking with Anadi a shout out because it was the jumping off point for today's recipe. So what is a Malai Kofta baked potato? Well, before I explain that, I should probably explain what a proper Malai Kofta is. Malai Kofta is a popular Indian dish comprised of potato and paneer orbs deep fried and served in a lake of creamy tomato gravy. Malai means creamy or buttery, and kofta means spiced balls, so as you can see, the title is very descriptive. There are, of course, several different varieties of kofta, many containing meat. But traditionally, Malai Kofta is vegetarian, so it almost always features potato and paneer kofta. Now for the part where I can't leave well enough I don't know what happened. It was like I'm going to have to say all of the words. Now for the part where I can't leave well enough alone. I decided to take the flavor profile from Malai Kofta and superimpose it on the wildly popular twice-baked potato. Nothing like messing with two classics. And to add further confusion, I served the tomato gravy on top of the potato, almost queso style. So basically, I inverted the recipe and turned the lake into a drizzle. So now that you know what these fusion-happy monstrosities are, let's make them. Preheat the oven to 400 degrees Fahrenheit. Place 2 scrubbed potatoes on a baking sheet lined with foil. I used russet potatoes, and I think you should too. Try to select 2 potatoes that are relatively similar in size, so no one feels shortchanged come dinner time. Drizzle the potatoes with olive oil and sprinkle them with a little salt. Place them in the oven and roast for 55 minutes to an hour. The potatoes are done when they can be easily pierced with a fork. While the potatoes are roasting, you can get started on making the tomato gravy, which starts with a little light chopping. Now, these vegetables are bound for the food processor, so there's no reason to chop them very fine. Cut 1 onion into quarters. Next, trim 3 to 4 green chilies. Peel and halve 1 1-inch chunk of ginger. And finally, peel 4 cloves of garlic. Pile the lot into a large food processor and blitz until smooth, scraping down the sides of the bowl as needed. Transfer the puree to a bowl and set aside. Pour a 1/4 cup of neutral oil into a large deep skillet and place over medium heat. Once the oil is shimmering, add a cinnamon stick, 2 bay leaves, 4 green cardamom pods, and a teaspoon of whole cumin seeds. Sauté until the cumin seeds pop and become fragrant, about 2 minutes. Add the puree to the pan along with a sprinkle of salt. Now this is where I'm going to ask you to slow down a little. We're going to be cooking the onion puree down for a while. One of the things I admire the most about a well-made curry is the layering of flavors. Although curry is a savory dish, it has a fair amount of sweetness to balance against the salt. And while we will be adding sugar to cut the acidity of the tomatoes we're about to add, most of that sweetness will come from properly caramelizing your onions. So set your heat to low and let the onions sweat it out. Once your onion puree starts to turn a soft golden color, add a can of tomatoes. Break the tomatoes up roughly with your spoon. Pour 1 cup of water into the can the tomatoes came in and give it a swirl. Add the water to the pan as well. Increase the heat and bring the tomatoes up to a spirited simmer. Next, add a 1/4 cup of whole unsalted cashews, followed by a teaspoon of demerara sugar, half a teaspoon of salt, 1 teaspoon of Kashmiri chili powder, half a teaspoon of gram masala, and a 1/4 teaspoon of ground coriander. Give the mixture a stir and reduce to a simmer. Let cook for 15 to 20 minutes. Once the 15 minutes have passed, fish out the aromatics and transfer the mixture to a large food processor. Blitz until smooth. When pureeing hot liquids, make sure you don't fill your food processor up all the way. Work in batches if necessary, and be sure to have a tea towel handy to protect your hands from any steam that might escape. Pour the gravy back into the skillet through a fine mesh strainer. Use a rubber spatula to work as much of the gravy through as possible. This will result in a smoother gravy. If you're not hell-bent on having the smoothest gravy in all the land, you can feel free to skip this step. It does take some time. Once the gravy is back in the skillet, stir in a 1/4 cup of heavy cream. Simmer the sauce for an additional 5 minutes to thicken. From here, you can either transfer your gravy to a resealable container and keep it in the fridge overnight, or if you're keen to finish your potatoes on the same day, you can cover it and let it hang out on the stove. Off the heat, of course, and then simply reheat it when your potatoes are ready. At this point, your potatoes should be done roasting. Carefully split the potatoes in half, taking care not to rip the skin. These will be our serving vessels later on, so we want them as pristine as possible. This would be easier to do if your potatoes had cooled completely, but your potatoes will also cool faster if they are split in half. So if you're baking your potatoes a day in advance, or you have an extra few hours, you can cool them while still intact. I was in a bit of a rush, so I threw caution to the wind and split my hot potatoes. Why does that sound like a euphemism?
I know, it really does.
Regardless of what you decide to do with your potatoes, let them cool on the counter until they reach about room temperature, then transfer them to the fridge and chill for at least 30 minutes. While the potatoes are chilling, we can get to chopping. Start by mincing a good-sized chunk of ginger. Next, thinly slice 2 to 3 green chilies. Next, finely chop a 1/4 cup of fresh cilantro. Then finely chop a 1/4 cup of golden raisins. And finally chop a 1/4 cup of unsalted cashews. Once your potatoes are good and cold, preheat your oven to 400 degrees Fahrenheit once again. Scoop out the flesh of the potatoes, leaving a 1/2 to 1/4 inch border. I used a melon baller for this because it's a precision tool in my opinion. It's also great at coring apples. Single-use kitchen tool, my ass. Transfer all the potato flesh to a large bowl and set the skins aside. To the potato flesh, add the ginger, green chilies, cilantro, 1/2 cup of crumbled or shredded paneer, the raisins and cashews, 1/2 teaspoon of kosher salt, 1/2 teaspoon of ground cardamom, 1 tablespoon of cornstarch, 1 large egg yolk, and 1/2 cup of whole milk. Using a potato masher, mash the ingredients together until a smooth mixture forms. Spoon the potato mixture into the potato skins and smooth it with the back of your spoon. Transfer the potatoes to the oven and roast for 15 minutes. Turn on the broiler and broil for 5 minutes. Be sure to keep an eye on them. You may not need all of the 5 minutes. Once the potatoes are golden, take them out of the oven and transfer them to a platter. Top the potatoes with the tomato gravy, a dollop of yogurt, and fresh mint leaves. Serve immediately. And there you go, Malai Kofta Baked Potatoes. I hope you try this one. It could make for a very nice Thanksgiving side. Just saying. If you do give it a go, let me know how it went in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like it and subscribe to this channel. I post a new recipe every week and a ton of goodies along the way. Thank you for cooking with me. I'll see you all next time.